Paul Wall.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This legislation is all about a fundamental rebalancing of power between the state and the citizens that it's meant to protect and to serve. We've heard powerfully today from many members about the Hillsborough families and their enduring quest for the truth. I'd like to add, just briefly, the nuclear test veterans to that list of campaigners for justice, including my constituent, 88-year-old John Morris. When John was stationed on Christmas Island in 1956, he was told British troops were building a new runway. In reality, they were testing nuclear weapons. But the weapons that were intended to keep Britain safe from the Soviet threat were far from safe from the men who were out in the South Pacific, as they were effectively treated like lab rats with little or no protection from harm. John is one of just 22,000 British troops who were exposed to radiation while on service in the 1950s, and who have campaigned for years about the cancers and other side effects they endured. John's son, Stephen, died at just 4 months old from birth defects. For 50 years, John and his wife faced repeated indignities. They were wrongfully questioned about on the suspicion of murder of their son. They were denied information about how and why their son had died. And they were denied John's own medical records. Finally, a coroner's report was revealed which suggested Stephen's lungs may not have formed properly. John himself has had cancer and has had a blood disorder since he was 26 years old. John sent me a message today. Great news about the Hillsborough Law, Paul. For us vets, it's very positive because it will make our lives much easier in getting the answers we demand. He's pleased that the Prime Minister in September agreed to meet him to discuss the issue further, and he's currently looking forward to that meeting. But there's another Rochdale resident whose campaign I hope will also benefit from this new legislation. 83-year-old Sylvia Mountain, who used the pregnancy drug test Primados, which has already been mentioned by some of my honourable friends, gave birth to her son Philip in 1963. But Philip died of birth defects just 22 days after he was born. Today, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the actual anniversary of the day her baby died, 62 years ago. Sylvia was told by doctors at the time to stop being hysterical, and that there's been no medical records that exist to explain her son's death. But many other women who were prescribed Primados also suffered similar birth defects in their children, as well as stillbirths and miscarriages. Victims of the Primados test are still waiting for answers. For more than half a century, these families have faced a culture of concealment, of suppressed evidence, of misleading official conclusions, and of denial of responsibility. John and Sylvia, two Rochdale pensioners in their 80s, whose lives have been overshadowed by tragedy and loss in very different ways, but very similar ways, personify the decades of injustice that this legislation is intended to prevent from ever happening again. I pay tribute to both of them for the resilience in the face of unspeakable tragedy and suffering, and I'm proud to have them as my constituents. John and Sylvia want the state to recognise its responsibilities before it's too late for them and too late for others like them. It's in their name and all the other victims of state power and cover-ups that I welcome this landmark Hillsborough Bill today, a bill that it's taken this Labour government to make a reality. Yeah.